Hey everyone, it's Jaden here from SpeedCubeShop.com, and today we're taking a look at the highly anticipated GAN 15. So for the 15 here, GAN sent us quite a few samples, but I'm fairly confident that what I have in front of me here is what is going to be the final release. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into it. So as always, GAN has a really nice design on their box. I really like the red and purple design that they're going with, and we're actually kind of simplifying the unboxing experience once again. All we're doing is just lifting off the top, and of course we have all the stuff inside, like card, along with the cube in the cube case. We have the bag not inside the accessories box, and of course it's the nice high quality GAN bag that we always have. And last but not least, we have the accessories inside. We have some pretty standard stuff like the adjustment guide, along with the stamp tool for the center cap removal, the fire hydrant tool, and something not normally included are different centerpieces. And now onto the cube, we have the cube case, which looks pretty similar to that of the 13 and 14, yet there is a bit of a design difference. But all you have to do, you press the logo that's on the front, and it just opens up. You have the cube. For the spare adjustment stuff, it's not on the bottom on the outside, it's actually on the bottom on the inside of the cube case here. You just reach in and pull it out, and we have our adjustable magnet rods. And something you may have noticed amongst those magnet rods is that there was no SIM card ejector tool. And the reason for that is that there's no edge or corner magnet adjustment except for the actual magnet rods that you are able to swap out. And then just to show you guys what the pieces look like now, we have a corner and an edge here. And as you can tell, there is no adjustment system. And for the edge piece, there's no opposing edge magnet either, which in my opinion is fine. I think it did contribute to the overly fast feel of the 14 and 14 Pro, so I'm okay with not having that in there. And while we have these pieces out, let's just go ahead and show you guys how to change out the magnet rods. So the default are these white magnet rods. These are right in the middle, the more moderate magnets. The green ones are the stronger magnets, and then these blue ones here are the weaker ones. And to take out the magnet rods, you'll use your fire hydrant tool. You'll use the little side arm here. You stick it on the magnet rod, turn counterclockwise, and then you can just pull it out. Then you'll just choose whichever color you want to swap it with. You'll just insert the rod, put the tool on, turn clockwise, take it off, and then you're pretty much done. It's that quick. So I'm just gonna put these pieces back in. We're gonna do some first turns. Now I have spent quite a bit of time with previous samples, so I do kind of have an idea of what to expect, but let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so the turning is definitely light and airy. It is fairly smooth. Typically, new cubes have a bit more of a prominent sandy feel. While it is still somewhat apparent on the 15 here, it's just not really that prominent. It's a lot more of a smooth feel. I am experiencing some catches throughout, but it seems to be cutting through them pretty well. Doesn't seem to be anything too major. It's definitely not as fast as the 14 Pro, which, you know, was just like so uncontrollably fast, but it is faster than the 12 by a fair amount. But even with the cube being so fast, it's still relatively controllable. Like I don't feel like I'm overshooting really at all. Honestly, just really liking the feel of this. Now for some of the more visually apparent features of this cube, of course we have UV coating. Now this is pretty much standard with GAN cubes and really just any other modern releases, so I'd be really surprised if it didn't have UV coating. But something else you may have noticed is that there is a bit of a different piece design here. The centers are a lot more rounded than normal. And I did actually bring a GAN 12 for reference, so holding them side by side, as you can tell, the GAN 12 is a bit more squarish, while the GAN 15 is much more rounded. And on the topic of centerpiece design, let's go ahead and talk about these other centerpieces that we've been given. So these centerpieces are a little bit different. If you look closely, you can see they're squared off on the corners here. Now this is something you would typically see with like a Moyu cube. And as far as I know, none of the GAN cubes have ever had that kind of squared off design for the centerpieces. And to me, what that is going to do is it's going to add a little bit more stability. And I don't think that would actually add any speed because there is more plastic. It should theoretically cause more friction, which would actually make it slower, even if it's not really by all that much. And I'm gonna show you guys what the default ones look like. And while I do that, I'll show you guys how to swap out the centerpieces. So to start, you'll just take off the center cap, and then you'll just press down on the adjustment system, and you'll turn clockwise or counterclockwise by about 90 degrees. And then you'll just take the adjustment system out. And then from there, you should be able to grab the centerpiece, take it out, and then swap it for the new one. And before I swap them out, these are what they look like next to each other. As you can tell, this one has the squared off corners, while the one that comes default is rounded. So my train of thought is that the rounded one would actually be better for speed, but it would be a little less stable, whereas the squared off ones would be a little bit more stable and maybe a little bit less speed. And for putting them on, you just put the centerpiece in, you take your adjustment system, you put that back in, you'll push down and turn 90 degrees once again, which locks it all into place so the layer doesn't come off, and then you're pretty much good to go. You just have to do it on all 5 other sides, which is exactly what we're gonna do, so we can see exactly how it feels.
Later that same evening.
So I've now put all the new centerpieces on, and honestly, the cube does feel a bit more stable, but I am getting some more catching. It's making the cube a bit more clacky. Now, the catching isn't too bad, at least as of right now. They seem to be cutting through it relatively well. There are a couple of kind of bigger catches that I didn't really see with the rounded off centerpieces, but as of right now, and this is before we've even set up the cube, it seems to be fine. What I'm kind of leaning towards is that you kind of have to make a decision on whether or not you want a more stable cube with a bit more catching, or if you want a slightly less stable cube with less catching. Now, there isn't a like drastic difference between the two centerpieces, but you can definitely tell that the feeling of the cube has changed a bit. And I think for those who have a very specific feel, this is something that I definitely think you should kind of look into. And now, before we put the centerpieces back on, let's just go over the dual adjustment. It is pretty much the same as the 13 and 14, but might as well just quickly go over it again. So there are 2 rings. The top ring adjusts the compression and the bottom ring adjusts the tensions. There are 6 settings on both, and for the top ring, 1 is the highest setting, so the highest amount of compression you can have, whereas with the bottom ring, 6 is actually the tightest setting. Now, to make the adjustments, you'll take the short end of the fire hydrant tool to place it on top and just turn clockwise. You can hear it clicking. And to know what setting you're on, there are these 3 little arms that point to a number. That'll point to the setting that you're on for the compression. And then for the tensions, you'll take the longer side of the fire hydrant tool and you'll just put them between the spokes. So I'm gonna set it probably to 5 because I want it to be a little bit slower. These little notches on the sides of the centerpieces, that'll point to what setting you're on. And you'll do that for all 6 sides. Now everything is even and I've adjusted the settings. I'm gonna put all these center caps back on. Okay, so yeah, the cube definitely feels a little bit more stable, but I am getting a few more catches. Now, nothing's really like that big or anything major. The cube seems to be cutting through it relatively well, but just something to take note of. But I think now would be a good time to add lube to this and actually like properly set it up and see how good is the cube when I'm actually doing solves and not just algorithms. So for the GAN 12, I use just Martian, so I'm gonna do the same thing for the 15 here. Just kind of break that in, get it working around the pieces. And it is making it more controllable, still keeping it relatively smooth. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of something stronger, so I'm gonna grab some Galaxy. All right, so putting in a bit of Galaxy in here. Okay, that's nice. It's starting to feel a lot better now. Definitely something I'm more comfortable with. All right, so just gonna do a quick solve here. Yeah, so pretty good. I like the feel of it. I can definitely see a lot of people enjoying this cube and probably saying that it is better than the 12. In my opinion, I like a cube that's a little bit more solid, a little stronger with the magnets, but you know, I can always add the green magnet rods to make the magnetic strength a little bit stronger. For me personally, I still kind of like the 12. I like that really solid, kind of a bit more controllable feeling, but with the direction cubes are going nowadays and what a lot of people's turning style is shifting towards, I think this is gonna fit for a lot of people. And then one last thing I wanted to point out before we end off this video here. While the cube is fairly stable, I did notice that it feels a little almost malleable, if that's the right word. Now, if I take the GAN 12 here and I try to kind of like move the layers around, you know, it doesn't really seem like they're gonna move anywhere. They seem very solid and in place. Whereas with the GAN 15, if I try to do the same thing, you can tell that there's a bit more shifting happening. But even with the slight kind of malleableness, if that's a word, of the 15, I still think it's slight enough to where people probably won't notice all too much. and probably would be fine with it. So overall, really good cube, and GAN is definitely taking a step in the right direction. They're taking feedback really well from all the people in the community, and they've kind of taken this more back to basics approach and developed a really, really solid cube. So if you'd like to pick one of these up for yourself, you can get them on SpeedCubeShop.com. They are $69.95, which is cheaper than the previous GAN 3x3 release, and we'll have a link down below in the description to where you can find it. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below letting us know whether or not you'll be picking up a GAN 15 and whether you think it's better than the 12 or not. Again, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.